Hello, I'm Craig Constantine. Welcome. This is the Podcaster Community Show, short conversations that are not just about podcasting because I like to take the scenic route. Our guest today is Lara Land. Welcome, Lara.
Hi, nice to see
I,
you.
which is kind of funny because we've communicated a bit in the podcasting workshop, and it is always a challenge of like when you have to, I'm going to say switch mediums when suddenly you see someone in person. I'm looking forward to the days when we can start meeting people in real life again. I've had a few of those now where I've had a chance to meet somebody that I haven't met before in person, and it's like, whoa. But yeah, as usual, I'm off on a tangent. Um, I'm There's so many things, and I'm never at a loss for what to ask. I'm always at a loss for what's the best thing to ask, and my mind is drawn toward the connection between, I'm going to say, breathing, but not simply the movement of air. I mean, about how breathing is a whole body experience for oneself, about how breathing, because you have a very educated, I'm going to say a very knowledgeable person to talk about breathing. How does breathing play into what you're doing with your podcast? Because I'm thinking you've got a big head start. I didn't know how to breathe
Mm,
when I started podcasting. And I'm wondering, have you noticed that that's helped?
well, interestingly enough, I mean, there's no right way to breathe, right? There's no like overall, this is the way humans should be breathing, right? There's there's better ways to breathe for different activities. So you would think that I would ace this podcast breathing game. But, no, I can ace the yoga breathing game, right? Like, if I have to teach yoga breathing, I can breathe great for yoga. I can really
Mm.
nail my breath and movement articulation. I can teach people how to slow their breathing and calm their breathing and get their nervous systems regulated, but, I haven't had so much experience practicing breathing and talking. And
It's
especially,
hard.
yeah, and I tend to come up with some really long sentences when I'm doing my intros. I'm like, "Lara, you need to add more periods, more commas, semicolons." So, I've been finding, yeah, I have to really practice. I would say I'm right now practicing less breathing and more sentence structure that gives me the space to breathe.
Mm, that's a good point. I have that little thing that I said at the beginning. Hello, I'm Greg Gonzi. Welcome to this podcast. It's just in a plain text document on the side of my screen, and I just change the person's name for each one. And I have it. It actually has like double spaces, and a lot of the words are spaced. Like to tell me to slow down, and capitalization. And I've read some articles and heard some people talk about the idea of having to really rethink how we write, because I'm trying, like in this little 18 line long thing, I'm trying to do more than just remember what to say. I'm trying to remember not just how to say it, I'm trying to remember how to be when I'm saying it.
Mm.
And I don't know if I have a question. I always promise I'll make questions, but
Well, I do think I was recording a little video for my nonprofit, 3.5 Acres Yoga, a couple
mm,
years back, and I had written this script for it. And the woman who was filming it said, "You might want to try reading that out loud because things sound different when we're writing them in
mhm.
our heads than when we actually say them."
Yeah, the voice. Is that a capital V voice or little v voice? The proverbial voice really matters. Uh, Again, so many questions. What about, so when I'm thinking about writing, and basically we're trying, you and I and everybody who's a podcaster, we're trying to perform. So the reading is like a performative, dramatic type of reading, but we're also trying to perform. These are only released in audio, but we can see each other in the call. So I'm also trying to be mindful of, like, if I stood here and talked exactly the same way but looked like this the whole time, you would be just like, you'd get a different energy from me. It was a sight gag. And I think I have changed a lot in the 5 years since I have been forced to pay attention to how the other person is mirroring me, or like how they feel, or
Mm.
the just the whole idea of the energy of the space. And I'm hoping that I'm not opening a new can of worms that you haven't thought of. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on when you want to interview people, do you think you'll be able to do the job that you imagine you could do if you can only do it over virtual? Or are you like chomping at the bit to get into in person? Or are you imagining you're going to be able to always do it as it's a theater show and it's fully produced? Like, what are your thoughts on embodying the host aspect
Hmm.
of your show?
Well, I've been recording with no video, mainly for bandwidth. I live in the Great Western Catskills in a very small town called Andes, and I don't know, we have the highest Wi-Fi one could have, but
Mm,
because my husband often works from home as well and could be on video. I'm just trying to get my sound right.
mm.
I'm going for like the sound is not horrible. Like it's a low level bar right now. Um, I don't have any really imaginings of my sort of body um positioning as host. Where I am right now in my process is really around the sound being like decent and getting the flow of questions out. I'm early on in my podcasting and I find myself thinking that I have these great questions. Like I listened to someone recently that I interviewed. Like I listened to her every podcast she's ever been on, like 10 podcasts. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm gonna ask her things no one's ever asked her. And it's gonna be so amazing. And then it's like it's happening. And I'm like, I don't think this is flowing the way that I imagined it in my
It's really
mind.
hard.
It's
Yeah.
really freaking hard. It's really hard. Yeah.
Um, I have a lot to say, and people who know me well know that I have a lot to say about conversation because I think, my opinion, that literally what you and I are doing right here, this is not an interview. I'm not interviewing you. In my opinion, this is a conversation, and I could talk at length about what I use those words and why I distinguish that. And so, whatever word we choose, though, there's a real challenge when the best way to explain it is remember people listening, remember the last time you went to your friend's house back in the day and you had a really great conversation and it was really awesome. Maybe there was a glass of wine, maybe there was a beer, whatever it was. You watched a football game or there's a social object like a board game involved. You had that great conversation. It was awesome. I'll tell you what you did not do. You did not call them and say, hey, Tuesday at 3 o'clock, we're going to jump on a Zoom call and we are going to have an awesome conversation. It's going to be done in a half hour. Like as soon as you
Yeah.
put the constraints on, and worse, oh, I'm also going to record it. That makes it really hard. And to me, it took me a long time to give up trying to avoid that problem and just go, yeah, this is what we're trying to do. So I'm not in any way pushing back on what you're saying. I'm just saying I agree with you completely. And I kind of gave up on trying to fix the problem and
Mm,
instead just focus on what I'm focusing on is I'm so excited to get to talk to Laura. That's literally what's going on in my head. I love to talk to people,
mm.
preferably when they don't run away screaming. But, so I don't know if you've thought about like where do you imagine your personal experience of podcasting being, or what do you imagine that would grow into after you've done say 10 experiences with guests or 100? Like, are you thinking of podcasting as a vehicle to accomplish something specific, or are
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
thinking through the life or the personal change that's going to happen if you keep doing it?
Well, I mean both. I got into podcasting because I'm releasing a book early next year and it's a vehicle for promoting that book and meeting folks who are experts in the embodiment and trauma healing space. So, I mean, it's cool. I get to talk to people that, whose books I read and who kind of like fangirl, and
Hmm.
so that's really exciting. And it's definitely opening up my world because generally I found people really excited to be on the podcast. And of course, it's learning something new. I think is really important. It's exciting. It's terribly frustrating at the beginning, but I know, it's like it's not like I've never learned something before. So I try to step back and
Right.
go, I know this is going to change. And I imagine that after 10, 20, 30, 100 shows that it should get a little easier to find the flow. And to, I think with the experts, it is different than let's have this like casual conversation because I'm really trying to get some expert knowledge out of them and maybe around a question that they haven't totally considered before or that my guests haven't heard the answer to before. So I'm trying to think about putting some ideas together in new ways so that it
Mm,
could be interesting. And, I don't like necessarily to hear the same thing I've heard before. So there's a
right.
little bit of that going on. But maybe I need to relax a little into even if someone has heard something many times, sometimes it's the fifth, sixth, seventh time we hear it that it sinks in, or we hear it in a different way, or we weren't ready for it at that moment in our lives. Yeah. I'm
Right.
seeing the nodding.
I don't want to
You
interrupt you.
know? No,
Yes, they weren't ready for it.
it's so important, right? And maybe they never heard me ask it or reflect on it
Yeah.
that way. So maybe I need to relax more into that. Like, and it's okay to ask a question that we've asked before or hear something again and not put so much pressure on the brilliant question that no one's asked
Hmm.
before. Yeah.
You make a couple of a couple of great points. In the what you're saying, I'm hearing your awareness that what you and I are doing, like right here, right now, is we're composing. Um, we're combining you're combining sorry, too many tenses and voices. We're combining each of our personal experiences and we're trying to create something new. We're clearly doing it on purpose since we scheduled it and it's planned and we're recording. And that kind of composition is very different from the type of composition that I had practiced before I started podcasting. I mean, I had done literary composition. I will read the book and then write the book report. I had done scientific composition. I have a question. How do I solve this? But I really think there's something special about composing, maybe in the way I'm not a dancer, I'm really bad, but the way two dancers might compose if they weren't long-term dance partners. Um, so I think there's definitely like a practice. I don't want to say practice makes perfect, but it feels to me like once you understand the basic pieces of how this works, then you're like, oh, I mean, sometimes I step on toes, sometimes things come out wrong or questions don't work. But there's like maybe not childlike's not the right word, but an honest, I show up honestly
Yeah.
and tend to say, I don't know a lot. so
Mm,
so
yeah.
I think you're on the right track. I don't know that I have anything to say specifically about getting, I was just thinking like, I've talked to a lot of experts, I mean, a lot of experts, but oddly, not necessarily about what they were expecting me to talk about. Like, I mean, you
Mm.
probably weren't expecting me to like want to dig into teacher training, but like that's clearly something you're expert about, and we're not talking about that. So that it is. I am over in a different, maybe an easier, more comfortable living room space, I guess.
I mean, I do envy it a little. Like, it's fun to talk to people and, like, you're talking to Zuckerberg. Like, I heard a little bit of his interview with Ferris the other day, and it's like, but you're talking about, like, his hobby. You know what I mean? Like, you're not talking about the things that everyone's asking about, why
Mm.
Facebook is tanking. Am I allowed to say all that? You said I could say whatever I
You can say
wanted.
anything you want. I'm clapping. Facebook
You know what I
tanking?
mean? I mean,
No.
there's something I feel like, yeah, that's fun, I mean, that's awesome. That's that unexpected way of going in an interview or just getting
Yeah.
the human out and not asking them that question about their expertise for like the 100th time is super cool. And maybe I'm gonna change my podcast. No, I'm
Oh
just kidding.
shit. Sorry. No, I didn't
I'm
mean to do
kidding. I'm
that.
kidding.
Didn't mean to do that. There's a magic. I have too many ideas in my head. I'm also running multiple trains of thought. One is I'm watching the clock tick, and anytime I'm talking and the clock is ticking, I feel like I'm doing it wrong. I think that when I ask people about things that are adjacent to their passion, like sometimes I don't know always, but sometimes I say, never ask people questions about the past. So I don't need to say to Laura, how did you get into teaching yoga? Or how did you wind up starting that nonprofit? I don't have to ask that question because if you're passionate about that, oh, you'll tell me that story. So sometimes I think if I'm just the crazy little kid who yells YOLO and crosses the street, and the person that I'm talking with goes, well, okay, that's kind of crazy, but that's interesting. Let's go see. Then we wind up on this journey of discovery together, but
Mm.
it's going to be colored by our experiences and our expertise. So if I say YOLO and cross the street, you go, that's actually an X-ray clinic. And I know all about, I'm the guy that invented X-rays. My last name's Rockton. I find that we kind of, me and the guest for many times, we sneak up on the awesome stuff, I think. So
Yeah, I believe you're right. I do.
but to be clear, I hope this doesn't weird you out. I did spend the last half an hour thinking about literally nothing but you. So at a half hour before the call, I start, like I Google and I'm on LinkedIn and I read, like, so we're in the podcasting course together. I read all of your lessons as fast as I can. I listen to a half hour of just like loading the person into my head. And then I try to just like I don't have pre-formed questions. So I'm probably doing a lot more research than people are thinking than I am. Not you, because I just told you, but the average person probably thinks I do these just completely cold. And no.
Mm.
um,
I'm not short for
um,
time, so if you do want to ask me about yoga or any of those things, we
I
can
think
talk about them.
I'm torn between West Cascades. I fancy myself a rock climber, so I've been to like the Showagonks and places, and but I'm torn between outdoors stuff,
Yeah,
which I'm guessing you're into, or at least attracted to if you've gone to the Cascades. Um,
yeah.
you want to do hard questions? You want to ask me a question? I got lots of hard questions.
Hard
What's
questions?
what's something that you think people get wrong about you?
Oh my gosh. Oh, you went in now. Oh gosh. Okay. Oh.
You can say, I had a guest one time. I loved him. I asked him a really hard question. He went, pass. Like it was a game show. I was like, well played. You don't have to answer that question if you don't want to. I just want to be like mindful of, I can be very domineering in conversation. So I want to be mindful of what Lara wants to do with the last few minutes.
Mm. Well, I think because I do a lot of public speaking and I went to theater school, I think people think I'm a lot more like outgoing or um, maybe don't always realize how much quiet time I need and reading and
Mm,
solo time.
yes.
So
Yes.
I'm one of those, I forget the name of it, extrovert, introvert, whatever. Like, I come off as extrovert, but I really need a lot of solo time, which kind of ties into your other observation about my living up here in the Catskills and needing and enjoying time to hike and be out in nature. I'm definitely using nature as a refuge and enjoying learning more about the natural world.
I would put myself in the same boat. I am, most people would say, extremely extroverted, but I'm not. I just happen to do well. I'm really good in social settings. But after a few hours of that, Craig needs a timeout,
Yeah.
and like I need to go somewhere, preferably outside. I am itching to go outside. We're probably in the same weather pattern. It is ridiculously gorgeous outside where I am. It's like 75, mostly sunny. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping,
Mm.
everything is blasting green, like because it's rained the last 2 days. I
No, I don't think we're
have
at
another meeting.
75. We're always like 10 degrees colder than everyone else, but the sun
Mm,
is finally here and we don't get a lot of sun here, which is challenging for me. We happen to
mm,
be in a really cloudy Delaware County. This county I live in just has lots of clouds. So
mm.
I'm definitely going to enjoy at least an hour outside. Usually I do that with my daughter after school, especially if it's gorgeous, but even in the cold, I will make myself get that outside time. It's really important to me. I really try to clock those outdoor hours. And I'm going to take a training on
Mm.
mindful nature guide leadership in about a week. So I'll be able to guide you through your outdoor
I want to talk about
experience.
that, and we have 20 seconds.
No.
We definitely need to circle back. I always say, I don't know if I've had any repeat guests on this show. Definitely have to circle back and talk about that. Uh, as much as I hate, because now I want to say, I have a million questions. I could do this all day, but like literally, these are supposed to be bite-sized conversations with people. I will just say it was a distinct pleasure to get a chance to talk. Yeah, I love like everybody brings an energy when I get a chance to talk to them. And I really enjoy like hanging out with like, oh yeah, we need to go outside. Unfortunately, we're like 4 hours apart, maybe more. All right. I will just say thanks so much for taking the time for dropping in and visiting me. And I wish you the best of luck with your new podcast going forward. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your great insights, and let's meet halfway. I'll see you in the great outdoors.
Oh, yes, please. Bye.
Bye.